Welcome, and we're going to say our bracha and then go right into screen sharing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Thank you. And here we are in the midst of these passages dealing with Joseph and his brothers. Now that he's viceroy of Egypt, they don't recognize him, he recognizes them, and he decides he wants to know, do they really care? Do they really have any regret, charata, any regret for what they did? And there's something very touching about this, because I feel that having life, living, is very, very much also having regrets. And not to try and pretend that we don't, and not to try to avoid them, because having regrets actually is a sign of having learned from experience. And if we were perfect, I like to say this, if we were perfect to begin with, there'd be no reason to create us. So the fact that we are created in this imperfect way is the very reason why we're brought into this world, in order to learn and learn how to perfect ourselves. And that's so important, such an important part of the story. And when you look at what the brothers did, right? I mean, actually the very definition, the very essence of what it is to make war and to practice hatred. And these lessons continue. They've never stopped. They're part of our world today. And whether or not we ever can really learn about this and understand ourselves enough. But that's what's happening right now. That screw is turning very tightly right now. So he's told them he doesn't believe them. Joseph's told the brothers he doesn't believe them, that he thinks that they're spies. He knows that that particular accusation is going to have a lot of feet to it because of what happened in Shechem. And so he says the way they're going to have to prove it is they're going to have to bring down this younger brother that they're talking about, to prove that they aren't just making up stories. So this is what he tells them. Shilchu mikem, right? Send from among you, echad, one. Send one brother, vayikach et achichem, so that he can take your brother. Va'atem he'asru, but you will be imprisoned. Vayibachu divrechem, and so your words can be tested. Ha'emet itchem, are you in fact telling the truth? Ve'im lo, but if not, if you're not telling the truth, che paro, by the life of Pharaoh, so he's making an oath, he's swearing here, ki meraglimatim, that you are indeed spies. So that's the test he's giving to them. Che paro, here it is, life of Pharaoh, im yechia Pharaoh, as Pharaoh lives, right? Im teitzu mizeh, make sure I have the right place, yes, right. If you go out from here, let me make sure that's, feel like I'm got the verse there. Yes, sorry, yes?
He wanted to do all this to see his brother Benjamin. That's why he's doing all this. He wants to make sure that his brother Benjamin, he wants to see him again.
I'm sure he does, but I actually think that he's doing it to test them. He really is. He wants to see if they have any regret for what they did. Have they learned? Have they changed? And that's a big thing, right? Are we capable of changing for the better? Are we able to change our personalities and our desires and our hurts and all those little pieces that go inside of ourselves that we know are our dark side? And can we in fact use them to grow? So here we are. Sorry, I don't know what I was doing there, because that's the previous verse. This is actually a previous verse. We're actually on Tet Zion, and here we are. Ha'emet itchem, im emet itchem. Is the truth with you, right? So it's a question, right? Is the truth with you? Lefichach hey nakud patach. And that's why this hey, I'll show it to you in a moment, right there. He says this hey that I'm pointing to is pointed with a patach. That's the name of this vowel. This vowel is called a patach. So, and that means it's not the regular hey. We know that a hey at the beginning of a word, one of the first things you learn about Hebrew is that the definite article in Hebrew is represented by the word hey, by the prefix hey, the truth. But normally, if a hey comes, this hey for the definite article precedes an aleph. An aleph is a guttural letter. Normally, the way it's pointed is with a patach and a dot, a dagesh, in the next letter. That's the way it's normally pointed. However, if it comes in front of an aleph, the hey is pointed with a kamatz. A kamatz is the little T sign. Here's a kamatz right here. Here's a kamatz. That's a kamatz. But here it isn't, right? So we have a patach in front of a gadol letter. And that's because this is known as hey hasha'elah. That is a hey that introduces a question. So this is why he's telling you this hey is pointed. Look at how carefully, we're looking at the words, right? This is why it's called dikduk. Hebrew grammar is called dikduk, which means to basically parse out the words. So, but it's important in terms of the translation, because if it was hey, the regular hey, then it would simply say, you are telling the truth. But he isn't saying that. He's saying, are you telling the truth? And so back here to Rashi, nakud patach, shahu belashon tema. He says, because he is saying, when he says the truth here, he says, quote, are you telling the truth? It is a question. He's asking, he's doubting them. He's questioning them. Ve'im lo tavi'uhu. So he's saying, and if you don't bring him back, che paro, by the life of Pharaoh, you are in fact spies. So I don't know if we're going to be coming up to this, or if we've already passed it. But when he says Che Paro, he uses Pharaoh, the life of Pharaoh, as the sort of seal of his swearing, his oath. It's because he's actually not telling the truth. And that's why he doesn't use God's name, even though later on you're going to see he in fact does tell them he is God-fearing. Let's go on. Vaye'esof otam el mishmar shloshet yamim. And he gathered them into the prison, the guardhouse, right? Shomer, guardian, guard. Shloshet yamim, for 3 days. He put them in the guardhouse for 3 days. And he says, Mishmar, Rashi explains this word, Mishmar, Beit HaAsurim, which means prison. That's what it means. He put them in prison for 3 days.
So does that mean that swearing an oath on a person, as opposed to God, is non-binding effectively? I mean, is that what that really says? Or it kind of says that.
Yes, it does say that. And the truth is, there's a statement that when in the 10 Commandments it said, you shall not swear falsely by my name, some word to that effect,
yes,
that the whole world trembled at that moment. Because people do it.
Yeah.
People do swear falsely by God's name. And that is conceptually undermining the very foundation of the universe. We say the seal of God is the truth. And when you ask yourself how many times a day do we not always tell the truth? I mean, sometimes we had that example with Abraham and Sarah and the story where God visited, and there was an example where you are allowed to bend the truth to spare someone's feelings, because you have to ask us, circumstances alter cases. But by and large, if you're going to swear, you better tell the truth. And you realize justice depends on it. If people swear falsely, it's a terrible, terrible thing. But words come to us very easily generally, and we don't put much stock necessarily in what we say unless we've trained ourselves to do that, to be very careful about what comes out of our mouths. It is a gift. It is a gift when you think about it. Let's go on. Yeah, go ahead, David.
No, I just said thank you.
Oh, sure. No, I mean, you brought out a very important point. Onwards, verse 18. Vayomer alehem Yosef bayom hashlishi. Joseph said to them on the third day, Zot asu, do this, vichyu, and live. Et ha'Elohim ani yareh. There it is. I fear God. Let's take a look. Let's see if we've got no, there's nothing on that, just no Rashi on it. Im kenimatim, if in fact you are truthful, if you're telling the truth, achichem echad, one of your brothers, ye'aser, shall be imprisoned, will be imprisoned, beveit mishmarchem, in your prison house. Va'atem, and the rest of you, lechu haviu, go, and bring Sheva Ra'avon Batechem, the produce for the hunger of your houses. So you're going to go take food back. That's what you came for. I'm going to let you do that. And assumedly that is a God-fearing thing to do. Beit Mishmarchem. So it's strange, right? It says it's your prison house, right? And he says all that it means is Sha'atem asurim bo achshav. It's not that they own the prison house, right? It's just that they are imprisoned in it now. Va'atem lachu ve'viu el beit avichem, and you go bring. And he says, he's putting in an ellipsis here, right? He's putting in words that are missing, that are understood, to your father's house. Right, bring to your father's house. It's not in the text, but it's understood. Shever ra'avon batechem, ma shekanitem, that which you bought the ra'avon anshe batechem, to feed, understood, the hunger of the people in your homes. Ve'et achichim hakaton, and your youngest brother, Taviu Elai, you shall bring to me, Veye amnu divrechem, so that your words are verified, Velo tamutu, so that you don't die, Veye asu chen. And that's the way it should be done. Literally it means, and they did this. And I'm assuming when it says they did this, it explains how he takes one of the brothers, Shimon, he's going to tell you, and releases the other. In other words, they released them. So I think the they here refers to the people under Joseph's command. V'yeh amnu divrechem, right? And may your words be verified. Yit amtu, right? From the word emit. Vayit kaimu, and be established. And Rashi gives examples, Numbers chapter 5, Amen, Amen. This is where they take, I believe it's referring to the sota, the woman taken under suspicion of adultery, and they administer an oath, and I believe she has to say, Amen, Amen, I accept it. In other words, that is the truth, right? I accept this oath. This oath is valid. Uchamo, another example, and this would be Malachim Aleph, the first book of Kings, chapter 8, Ye amen na dvarecha, may your words be verified. I do not remember the context of that. But if it's Kings, it would be dealing with Solomon, I believe. So there we are. Let's go to the next verse. Vayomru ish elachav. This is a key verse here. And a man said to his brother, they said, each to the other, Aval Ashemim Anachnu. So normally the word aval means but Rashi's going to explain that here in this context it doesn't mean but, it means indeed, truthfully, indeed. Ashemim anachnu, we are guilty. Al achinu, regarding our brother. Asher ra'inu tzarat nafsho, in that we saw the affliction of his soul, behitchanano elenu, when he was pleading to us, v'lo shamanu, and we didn't listen. Al kain ba'a elenu, and for this reason, hatzara hazot, that's the subject, this trouble, this adversity is coming upon us. Wow. Wow. They've put it together. Right. And Joseph is so wise. And he knew if he did what he did, they would have to think about this. But they are putting they're putting 2 and 2 together, and they're making 4. They're saying it. They're realizing it. So, you think about the alternatives he had, right? He could have taken revenge. He could have identified himself and accused them directly. Getting a person to understand when they've done something wrong and getting them in a way which allows them enough dignity and enough consideration for them to figure it out is about the only way to do it. People don't like being confronted, and they push back. And here Joseph is doing it so wisely that there's no real opportunity for them to push back at him on this. They did a little bit, but they're in no position really to do it. And he really wants them to understand what's going on. So here we go. Aval. Remember, normally the word aval means but he says ketargumo bekushta. So he says that Onkelos, as Onkelos translates it accurately, bekushta means, kushta is truth in Aramaic. So it means indeed, in truth. V'ra'iti b'Bereshit Rabbah. This is so sweet, right? On occasion, Rashi just shares a little personal thing with us. So he's saying, and I saw in Bereshit Rabbah, Lishna de Roma'a. He says that it actually is a Latin word. It's a Latin word. And here it is, okay? That aval, right? And I'm wondering to myself whether the val here has something to do with valid. And the Sfaria was very helpful. The translator there takes this Hebrew word and writes it as verum. So because baram is a Hebrew word, probably Aramaic. It's probably an Aramaism, I'm going to guess. And it means however. But he sees this as actually being verum. Now, I would tell you that the bet is strange here, because normally a bet in the letter bet in the first position like that takes a dagesh, which means it would be b. And the way we'd make sure you translate it as v would be 2 vavs. The 2 vavs would normally go there. So just throwing that out there. Ba'a aleinu, it is coming upon us. Ta'amo beveit, okay? The reason it's he's saying is that the accent comes on the bet, ba'a aleinu, and not ba'a aleinu. So the reason is he's going to tell you, lefihu shehu belashon avar, because it's in the past, it's the perfect tense, right? Shekvar ba'a, it's already come. Ba'a means to come, it's imperfect, but ba'a means past tense, it's perfect. V'tagumo atat lana, again, Aramaic. The Targum came upon us, has come upon us. So it's come, it's finished, has come upon us. Vayan, and here we go. This is actually an interesting verse here. Vayan Reuven otam lemor. Reuven responded to them with these words, saying, Halo indeed, amarti alechem lemor, did I not say to you, al techta'u b'yeled, do not sin against the child, do not sin with regards to the child. V'lo shamatem, but you didn't listen. V'gam damo hine nidrash, and now his blood is being required. Meaning that, and I had a friend back in rabbinical school who was a good, even as a student, was he had a lot of knowledge of the Bible. He taught me quite a few things. This is one of the things he taught me. This verse tells you that Reuben believed he was dead. He wasn't around. Remember, he had left the brothers as they were plotting, hoping to come back and restore Joseph to his father. And so he was gone when the brothers sold Joseph into slavery, came back, saw that the child was gone, saw the coat with the blood on it, and figured that he was dead. To require the blood means that someone has died, right? That someone was killed, and now, since you've spilled their blood, your blood is going to be spilled. So Reuben believes at this point, they've kept this from him. He doesn't know. And in a way, of course, this, looking at direct speech also tells you so much about a person, right? Reuben has a great heart. We're going to see more about Reuben later, he's a very emotional person. He acts very much based on his emotions. And very often, his emotions may be well-meaning, but I wonder to myself if the Torah is trying to tell us that well-meaning emotions ultimately may not be very helpful, right? He's the one who apple-pied his father's bed after the death of Rachel because he wanted to uphold his mother's honor. It was just inappropriate. But again, acting out of emotion. Vehem lo yadu, going on now. Let's see if there's anything here. Yes, gam damo. Sorry, there's a Rashi here. And indeed, his blood. Okay? And he says the gam, right? This even is the word gam. Atin the gamin, meaning that the words et and the word gam in a sentence, revuyin, they add something else. And so Rashi is saying damo, when it says, it could have said v'damo nidrash. It didn't need to say v'gam damo, right? So the adding of this gam means his blood, the gam dam hazakein, meaning that the way Rashi's understanding this is that it's going to kill his father, right? It's not that they've killed Jacob. Obviously, Jacob is living, but clearly, his life is less than it was in the loss of Joseph, right? Remember, we had read that he never ever got over his grief. So it could be, actually, if we can go a little further on that Rashi does not understand it the way my friend Lawrence Silverman understood it, but simply that he's saying that it's responsibility. But I have to tell you, Lawrence was correct. Rabbi Silverman is a rabbi, and that generally speaking, when you're talking about blood, we're talking about life. So maybe it's saying that we will, right, be responsible for if that in the future Jacob is not going to make it if we lose Benjamin. Going on. This is so important, and I know it's 8:00, but I want to get this one verse in. Vehem lo yadu, and they didn't know, the brothers didn't know, ki shomea Yosef, that Joseph is listening, that Joseph is hearing. And we also know that the word Shema means to understand, that when you're listening with understanding, that Joseph understands. Ki hamelitz beinotam, for the interpreter was between them. They had no idea that Joseph understood their conversation. And I hate to stop here. I mean, we've got a Rashi, and I think I'm going to have to just mark this. This is, of course, the last day for this year to do this. So God willing, we'll do this next year and pick it up here. Joseph's reaction. So we'll go right here, and I'm going to put in the bookmark. And that is it for today. And I'm going to stop the share and stop the recording.